Vancouver Canucks let a 2-0 lead get away and fall 3-2 in overtime. The game didn't mean anything to the Canucks, but it meant everything to the Minnesota Wild. We're breaking it all down right now on Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside our Rink Wide Vancouver studios on a night that saw the Vancouver Canucks build a 2-0 lead, but they let it get away, and the Minnesota Wild skate out of Vancouver with 2 important points in the Western Conference standings. It is Rink Wide Vancouver. It's brought to you by Bet365. I'm Jeff Pettersson, and he is the handyman over there. We're having some microphone issues with Patrick Johnson, and we hope that we'll be able to get those resolved. A lot going on at the final buzzer, and we're scrambling here on Rink Wide. If you want to join us, we'd love to hear from you, and we do this on every program. You know the drill by now. We're 80 games deep into this season, but if you want to hit us up with a question or a comment and get it right through to the top of the queue, then bring it with a super chat. Our charity partner all season long has been the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. 3-2 is the final score. A desperate Minnesota hockey club that needed the result. And for 40 minutes, they were in trouble. Let's face it. We've seen this way too many times from the Vancouver Canucks this season, and this is part of the reason that they will not be going to the playoffs, and the Wild are now one step closer and knocking on the door, but the Canucks sitting back, unable to protect the lead, and in the end, 23 trips to overtime, and they've come up short in 14 of them.
You just think about the 14 number. By the way, Mike is not working.
I see that. Well done. Nice job.
The 14 losses is just so stunning to me. You like take a couple of those points. You flip them around. I mean, not necessarily this game, but it's such a statement in the end that there's so many reasons to say why this season went wrong. I mean, you can just say that St. Louis Blues 12-game winning streak that sealed the deal, but not being able to get it done in overtime as often as they did is such a story to me.
And it's funny because through 2 periods, and look, context matters here. The Minnesota Wild playing back-to-back, lost in Calgary last night in a game that obviously they wanted to get. They didn't get, but they had to pack up, move on to Vancouver, play on consecutive nights, and that's tough. I mean, that's tough at any point in the season. But with really their playoff lives hanging in the balance, I didn't see a ton of desperation early. Canucks score 3 minutes into the hockey game. Nice goal by Marcus Pettersson. His first as a Canuck, comes in off the left wing, takes the pass from Linus Karlsson and snaps it home past Filip Gustafsson. And the Canucks get the lead, and all of a sudden, Minnie's now, facing an uphill battle. And it stayed 1-0 till the middle stages of the second. A power play. It's Hoglander off the bench. His shot deflected, I guess. I couldn't see with my own eyes that Jake DeBrusk got his stick on it, but it is credited to DeBrusk. So 27 matches his career high. For the third time, he has been a 27-goal scorer in the National Hockey League, and at 2-0, you're thinking, okay, the Canucks aren't playing that well, but they've got a 2-0 lead, and yet it is a 60-minute game, or in this case, a 62-minute and 47-second game, because full credit to the Minnesota Wild. They dug down, they found a way. And again, the game didn't mean anything ultimately to the Vancouver Canucks. Rick Tocchet keeps banging the drum of lots of people watching and eyeballs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they're not going to the playoffs. They knew that. They've been mathematically eliminated. And so credit to the Wild for gutting it out and finding a way to get the job done.
When you and I left the rink to come here, I don't think either of us expected them to play the way they did. They obviously coming off a disappointing loss. I'd looked at Mike Russo, the covers the Wild so well for The Athletic, and I just said, what's going wrong with this team? Like, are they going to have any juice? Are they going to find their way? And he sort of went, man, last night, like you look back at how limp they were last night in a must-win game, really. I mean, if they win that game last night, this is a completely different story. And in many ways, winning this game tonight puts them back in the driver's seat. They're probably going to make the playoffs, which makes their comeback so much more impressive because they had everything to play for and they really pulled it out. I mean, 26 shot attempts at 5-on-5, 6 high danger chances. Like the Canucks looked like the team that had played the night before. They were standing still in the third period. It felt like a lot of time.
22 seconds into the third, Brock Faber scores.
Yeah.
And the Wild couldn't have written it any better. They couldn't have asked for a better start. And you kind of got a sense then that, all right, they've just cut the lead from 2-0 to 2-1, and now they got the rest of the period here to get the one goal that they need. Doesn't matter to them if they had to go to overtime, and ultimately they did. This is a Canucks post-game pod, so we'll focus mostly on what the Canucks did or didn't do, but there are two teams out there, and so Faber with a shot through Connor Garland and past Kevin Lankinen, and then the Wild started to turn it up. The Canucks had to kill off a penalty in the third period. They were able to do that, but Marcus Foligno tips a centering pass from Ryan Hartman. Marcus Pettersson, who had scored earlier in the game, not able to lock up Foligno in front of the net. He gets his stick on it and taps it past Kevin Lankinen, and then at 2-2, now the Canucks basically holding on, and the game does get to overtime. Matt Zuccarello all alone in front of the net. Deeks, Lankinen, Kaprizov, and Faber got the assist. 2:47, the time of the winner. Zuccarello's 19th goal of the year. Look, again, we marvel on a nightly basis at Quinn Hughes, what he does, his workload, but he's not the only guy in the NHL that's asked to shoulder a ridiculous ice time deployment. Brock Faber, on the second of back-to-backs, plays 32 minutes and 21 seconds.
33:28, actually, Jeff.
Oh, have they updated? Okay.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down before. I'm guilty of that sometimes. So have they changed Matt Boldy as well? Because Boldy, he had a career high, and this is a forward, playing 27 minutes and 15 seconds. We should mention, and it wasn't just Faber, Jonas Brodin as well. What's his final ice time?
32:09.
32:09. So they have two defensemen up over 32 minutes. They were without their captain, Jared Spurgeon, so they're already shorthanded on the back end of back-to-backs. You got to salute the Minnesota Wild for finding a way to come back, and they get the victory. And with it, and now all the games on this night are complete, and so the playoff picture is still murky, but it's starting to come into focus. The Minnesota Wild are now wildcard one with a 1-point edge on the St. Louis Blues, who lost in a 7-round shootout in Seattle. So Minnie's got 95 points. St. Louis has 94. They each have one game to go. The Calgary Flames have a path to the playoffs here now. The Flames have 3 games remaining, 2 of them at home, starting tomorrow night against San Jose. They've got 90 points. So they're 4 back of St. Louis, 5 behind Minnesota. They can max out at 96 points. It's there for them. It's going to be difficult because they've got Vegas and Los Angeles still. But those games won't mean anything to the Kings or the Golden Knights. Who knows what kind of lineup those teams ice? There is definitely a path to the playoffs for the Calgary Flames. The Canucks with their single point, again, it doesn't matter. Their record is 37, 29, and 14. Again, there's that number. 88 points on the season. And just add this one, Pat, to a long list of disappointing games for the paying customer at Rogers Arena. And the home record is now 16, 15, and 8. 16 wins in 39 home games.
Absolutely. I mean, I wrote about this early in the week, but if you look at the road record, which is the harder place to play in theory, and the Canucks do double that road record. I think it's 102 points. What was it? 21, 14, and 6. So double it. I mean,
they're 98 points on the road.
98 points on the road. Right. So it's amazing to think about the split between the two. And it doesn't, I know Rick Tocchet is as baffled as we are about that. I mean, it doesn't really make sense because you would think at home, last change, all these things. And I mean, maybe we do need to dial in and say, we'll talk about this later, but the strength of lineups. Maybe it's that the lineup's a bit better on the road. I don't know. But it's just been very, very strange.
And I mean, it's never the fault of one guy. But why did Jake DeBrusk score 19 road goals this year? And this was his 7th at home or 8th at home. I mean, that defies, there's so much about it that defies explanation, but you're right. At some point, they got to figure it out because it's a 20-point drop year over year from last year when they were almost unbeatable on home ice to this year where they just gave away points on a seemingly nightly basis. So the Vancouver Canucks got outplayed. In the end, I mean, the final shots are 33-14. Third period, 13-4. The Canucks kind of hang Kevin Lankinen out to dry here. And I thought Lankinen was really good in this hockey game at times. Ultimately, he gives up 3, and that's unfortunate for him. But, a solid performance against Vegas last week at home, and then looked really good in Colorado the other night, got the win, but ultimately unable to deliver a victory here. And we should mention this as well. for Kevin Lankinen, this was his 50th appearance of the season. Like, when you just stop and think about that, signed to a contract, bet on himself. We all know the deal and the story, but on the eve of the preseason, coming out of training camp where they realized that Thatcher Demko was nowhere close to being ready and they didn't have enough goaltending, and they can thank their lucky stars that Kevin Lankinen was available at that point. He comes in and they get 50 appearances, 48 starts out of Kevin Lankinen at almost a league minimum deal.
It's still amazing to me how that worked out. I mean, realistically, he struggled lately, but he was great tonight. It's still amazing to me how that really did end up playing out, at least in terms of the cap hit in the Canucks' favor. I mean, obviously they were in a bind. They needed a goalie. Kevin Lankinen's camp knew that they needed a goalie, but in the end, they got what they needed, and he's done this. I mean, he's done this time and again, and in the end, it comes down to what was in front of him, and there just wasn't enough in front of him tonight.
No, and
not necessarily their fault.
No,
because should we talk about it now? Is this the center depth time?
No, we'll get to that. There's a lot of things I want to get to. Yakov Trenin and Derek Forbert. The chant obviously is off the hook on that topic, and so yes, we will get there. We're just trying to sort of go chronologically a little bit and detail the game itself. Let's get to the 3 stars, though. We'll get that up and out of the way, and then we'll get to some of the details within this hockey game. But the 3 stars are a presentation of Greta Bar, YVR in the building, Brock Faber, Kevin Lankinen, and Matt Zuccarello, who ends up getting the winning goal. We've got Zuccarello as the winning goal scorer. The Wild needed a victory, as we said, and he came through when the chips were down. There's Faber, and what a great headshot at NHL.com with the goggles on. You don't see a lot of guys wearing the glasses for their individual headshots on team pages, but Brock Faber, the bespectacled Brock Faber, a goal, an assist, the ice time, absolutely strong argument for Faber to be the first star in the hockey game, but Zuccarello gets the winner. In overtime, they needed it. And there's Lankinen. Without a question, the best Canuck on the night. It's hard to think of who was the second best. Pia Suter logged a ton of ice time. That comes back to center depth. But, on a night when a rookie's making his NHL debut, and we'll talk a little bit about Ty Mueller and his night as well. But those are the 3 stars. And, 2 of them, Minnesota Wild, and 1 from the Vancouver Canucks. 3 stars brought to you by Greta Bar, which was a great host all season long. We had our latest and our final Canucks viewing party on Thursday. I made a quick appearance before the hockey game, but sounded by all accounts. Even though the stakes weren't high, they got to see a Canucks win in Colorado, and spirits certainly were high at Greta. So we look forward already to next season hosting more Canucks Army watch parties. There's so many big screens there, not a bad seat in the house. All the arcade games, people were having fun with those. The terrific new street food menu, and they've got the weekly drink special. So even as the Canucks season comes to a close, keep Greta in mind. If you're looking for a night out, it is a terrific spot. It's the place to be. 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. All right. On a night where the result and the outcome isn't consequential for the Vancouver Canucks, but the health of veteran defenseman Derek Forbert is. And just an ugly incident.
Yeah.
In that third period. Yakov Trenin plays the game hard, takes a run at Quinn Hughes, and look, how many times this season have Canuck fans been up in arms about nobody coming to the defense of the captain? Somebody's got to protect him. There's got to be a deterrent. Now, you and I had left after 2 periods, so we weren't in the building sort of to see the buildup, but we saw the replay on TV the same way everybody did on the Hockey Night broadcast. We saw the hit by Trenin on Hughes. What we didn't see was sort of those moments then that led to the dropping of the gloves, because ultimately it's Yakov Trenin who gets the instigator, but that's not what we're here to talk about. It's the last shot. Forbert down on the ice and unable to protect himself. And how many times throughout the season, Patrick, do we hear about the code? The code.
Where's Mike Martinengo?
The code. Yakov Trenin defied the code. Yeah. Because it's just cheap. It's cheap. It's dangerous. I mean, we talk about the code for a reason, because there's supposed to be respect. There's a Department of Player Safety. Well, I don't think Derek Forbert was terribly safe at the bottom of the pile when it looks like the fight's over, and we're showing it on the live stream there. The Canucks bench up in arms. Teddy Bluger gives Trenin a little whack from the bench with his stick. He got penalized for that. But just, again, like, a lack of respect,
lack of awareness.
Punch,
Yeah.
And Forbert was in a bad way after that.
Yeah. I mean, it was a lack of awareness. You're down on the ice. I mean, I think everyone knows you hit the ice, it's over. But the linesman's also there. And so to look up and think, I'm going to continue with my punch, even though I can see that there's a guy with stripes right next to me, it's a bit stunning. I mean, fights can blow up. I get it. But in that moment, once you've hit the ice, I think everyone knows that it's supposed to be over. And you can understand why the Canucks were so upset about it. Sounds like they were pretty upset about it postgame.
Yeah, I know that you had some sort of report from.
Well, I got a message here from Gemma Carson Smith, who's sending me the postgame audio. But I also see people have talked about it on social media. Just that Pettersson said it was one of the dirtiest things you've ever seen, worst things you've ever seen. Versions of that. That everyone just sort of realized that there's a guy that can't defend himself, and it happens fast. Obviously, things happen fast, but you should be able to recognize what's not safe in that moment.
And there was some confusion on the ice because the referees all huddled.
Yeah.
There was some discussion about, were they going to give him a separate penalty? Look, there's an inherent risk when you drop your gloves and get in a fight that you're going to get punched. I think everybody understands that. It's a fight. But fights generally have a natural end. And in hockey fights, when a guy is down and can no longer defend himself, that's where respect comes in, and just a blatant lack of respect there. So I'll be curious to hear Rick Tocchet's comments. We'll see if anything comes out of the Minnesota side. Whatever the case, I'm just hoping the best for Derek Forbert. It's been a tough year for him, obviously. And, with 2 games to go, if he suffers any kind of head injury, that might be the last we see of Derek Forbert for this season, and he's out of contract after this. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I just hope that, he's all right and he's able to play again here over the final couple of games.
I think we can understand the video review here. I'm just going because they've scored it as aggressor finally on the score sheet.
Oh, okay.
Which is the aggressor in altercation shall be the player who continues to throw punches in an attempt to inflict punishment on his opponent who is in a defenseless position or who is an unwilling combatant. So obviously they were just looking to confirm that he was in a defenseless position. The review rule is a bit confusing because it says all majors have to be reviewed unless it's a fighting, but I took it the way it's worded that you can still review a fighting major to make sure you get it right.
And so I see now on the official NHL.com box score, you're right. Trenton gets 5 for fighting, 2 for unsportsmanlike conduct, and then the 10-minute aggressor penalty, and that's why he was thrown out of the hockey game.
Right.
At that point, he got 17
right.
minutes with only 16 minutes to play, although, as it turned out, the game went to overtime. So I think he would have served. It's like he didn't get a game misconduct on the sheet, but maybe an aggressor.
Aggressor is a game. It's a game misconduct. They're just saying that's a game misconduct, but it's an aggressor game misconduct, which I think is also flagged for review.
And now we'll see if the Department of Player Safety comes in after the fact and has anything to say. I mean, it kind of feels like the type of play that could merit some supplemental discipline, and it's hard to. I mean, I have enough trouble with goaltender interference and coaches' challenges. I basically have given up trying to predict what the Department of Player Safety is going to do. But as I said, I don't think Derek Forbert felt particularly safe in that moment. And so, again, we'll see if this is escalated to the league level.
I have a little more minutia. If you care.
Yeah.
Player who's deemed both the instigator and the aggressor of an altercation shall be assessed an instigating minor penalty, major penalty for fighting, a 10-minute misconduct for the instigator, and a game misconduct for the aggressor. So it sounds like they changed it because initially they announced it as instigator, but obviously they changed the actual assessment of the penalty, which is interesting because, of course, where the unsportsmanlike is not clear because there was a fight and then him getting escorted off the ice and him getting upset. But Teddy Blueger also had a penalty. Anyway, it's water under the bridge at this point.
Rick Tocchet, we'll try to bring you the coach's comments a little bit later on, has addressed the media, said he agreed with Marcus Pettersson's comments about Trenton and the punch, and he said he had no update on Forbert. So we'll have to wait and see if I'm not sure if they practice on Sunday or if it's a day off, but we may not get an update now on Derek Forbert for a little while. But again, fingers crossed for him and his well-being. Just an ugly and needless scene. And, we talk about these games not meaning anything, and yet this guy's out there putting his body on the line and on the unfortunate wrong end of just a silly punch at that point in the hockey game. A bunch of other things I wanted to get to. And when we look at the way the game unfolded, you talked about minutia. Some of the stuff is just that, but moments before Marcus Foligno scored to tie the game. Ratu had a glorious chance, probably the best Canucks chance, maybe their only chance of the third period. And I think he made the move that he wanted.
Yeah.
Looked like he tried to go high on the glove side on Gustafsson and wasn't able to beat him, but a goal there. And it is probably curtains for the night.
Yeah.
So, Gustafsson, we didn't talk about him. He wasn't all that busy, but that was easily his best save of the, what did he make? 12 saves on the night? Not much doubt. That was his biggest and his best.
And I was telling you before the show, like, I think it was last Sunday after the Vegas game, when he had the chance maybe to have stopped the winning goal, he was right there. And then we asked him about the game, and he actually was honest. He's like, I don't know if I was the third guy or the fourth guy. I didn't want to over back check. And then the scrum ends, and he actually had it turned to a couple of us and said, well, what did you guys think? And he wasn't upset. He was curious. And on our sort of view, here's a guy who, I think he's going to be beating himself up from one of the bits I've learned about him. Like, this is a guy, he's trying not to, he is talking the talk, can't let things bug you, but there are things he thinks a lot about. He wants to be an NHLer. He wants to figure out how this all works. So, that was a chance. It was absolutely a chance. He's a goal scorer. He thinks of himself as a goal scorer. And he was you're exactly right. I mean, he got in the moment. He was free and clear, made the move he wanted, and the goalie beat him.
And the Minnesota Wild beat the Vancouver Canucks 3-2 in overtime. Second 3-2 overtime of the season against the Canucks. Kirill Kaprizov scored at XL Energy Center at the end of a long road trip back November into early December. And here tonight, it was Zuccarello with his 19th of the year, Kaprizov and Faber. Got the helpers at 2:47. Minnesota skates out of town, taking 2 out of the 3 meetings against the Canucks, although the Canucks had the only regulation win, a 3-1 victory on the night of the trade deadline. Remember, the trade deadline passed, and there was hockey that night. Kevin Lankinen made 37 saves the last time he was in town. That was his season high for Lankinen, who, again, was busy in this hockey game, but has to settle for the overtime loss like his team does. All right, Marcus Pettersson. An active night for him. We saw him score a goal. I had mentioned the other night that, as the Canucks have been scoring all these goals of late, and Rick Tocchet sort of pointed out this morning that, defensemen are starting to pick up a bunch of points. Like Filip Hronek had 15 points in the previous 20 games. Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes. He gets his points. But you don't think of Marcus Pettersson as an offensive generator, and yet he had 10 assists in the last 20 games. So, a half a point a game guy. Not a lot to write home about, but still, he's third on the depth chart to get, half a point a game over a 20-game stretch. Tonight we saw him score for the first time in a Canuck uniform. He had 3 in Pittsburgh, so it's his 4th goal of the season. But, you see him shoot, pick his spot, and, a little surprised that he hasn't scored maybe a little bit more. And I like the play of Linus Karlsson. Just inside the line, pulls up, recognizes that he's got, Karlsson, or he's got Pettersson as sort of the trailer of the play, passing to space, and Marcus Pettersson takes it from there. It was a quite nice sequence from the Canucks, 3 minutes and 11 seconds into the hockey game.
Well, who's become a pair lately? Filip Hronek and Marcus Pettersson. It doesn't surprise me that Pettersson's starting to pick up points because he's playing with a bit more of an offensive defenseman. Hronek's had, I think, fair to say, an up and down year. It's not been as good as last year was. But there's a reason why they're trying to play them together, and now they've got to figure out who's going to be the partner for Hughes going forward. But it doesn't surprise me to find out that Pettersson has been able to contribute. That was a role he did play a little bit in Pittsburgh. He played a lot with Karlsson. He played a lot with Letang, and sort of being the caddy to the guy that can dish means that you're going to pick up points, especially when they are able to pick up points the way Hronek is able to.
And the other Canuck goal, Jake DeBrusk, we said, deflects the Willander shot. Quinn Hughes gets the second assist there. So Quinn Hughes, another point, 408 now in his career, and 1 back of Alex Edler with 2 games to go. So still tracking to become the highest scoring defenseman in Vancouver Canucks history before the end of this season. And I hope it happens. It's been such a down year, but through it all, the captain, when he's been healthy and even when he hasn't been healthy, has gutted it out, performed at a ridiculously high level.
Yeah.
And I do hope that he gets a chance to get the record at home, and so the fans can salute him and celebrate him as they should on one of these final 2 nights. And you got San Jose coming in. They give up a lot of goals. So certainly a chance there. And then Vegas to wrap things up on Wednesday. But my goodness, Jake DeBrusk, who has scored in 3 straight. And the streakiness just continues with this guy. It's unbelievable. But another goal that is scored with a toe in the blue paint around the net.
Yeah.
This time, got enough, I guess, of the Willander shot to deflect it. Look, was brought in to score goals for the Canucks. He's probably going to lead this team in goals now. He's separated himself by a pair over Brock Besser, who's at 25 at $5.5 million. It hasn't always been pretty. There have been long stretches that you haven't noticed him all that much, but he's paid to score goals. He has scored goals where a lot of guys haven't held up their end of the bargain. I think at 27 and matching his career high. Certainly, it's been an acceptable first season in Vancouver for Jake DeBrusk.
Can we call him a power play specialist? I mean, is this what we always think the power play specialist be? The guy that doesn't play a lot 5-on-5. He plays a lot at 5-on-5, but he has not, as you've noted, I think a few times, he has not scored a ton 5-on-5.
No,
but he has still scored. He is now tied for his career high in goals.
Yeah,
like he has been the guy they wanted him, I think, to be in terms of scoring goals. I think he's been fine as a two-way player, even if he hasn't produced 5-on-5. But a guy that is in that same mold as Brock Besser, and you do wonder about going forward in terms of the valuation, because obviously Besser, I think, thinks he should get paid. I'm you know me, I'm a huge fan of Brock Besser. I'm really impressed with the sort of the player he's become, and what he's brought to the table as a quiet leader in that group. But you look at the value you're getting out of Jake DeBrusk, and you start going, okay, like you can maybe see why the team's been playing a little bit of hardball with Besser, because they see another secondary scorer, a guy you want on your team, a guy that produces, but isn't what you consider an out-and-out top-end elite two-way winger.
Well, it's funny, too, because, if I think about power play specialists in the National Hockey League, it starts with Alex Ovechkin, and I'm not comparing Jake DeBrusk, but Alex Ovechkin is a power play guy from his office his entire career, big shots, right?
Yeah.
This is a guy that cleans up around the net. And look, there's lots of different ways to score goals in the National Hockey League. Jake DeBrusk is there's generally a price to be paid to go to the hard areas, to stay there, to, have a stick that's available, to find the loose pucks that are there in skates against some of the biggest and strongest defensemen in the National Hockey League. So I'm not knocking the goals that he scored. There's definitely been a pattern to it. It's funny. Somebody in my mentions the other day said, it's the most underwhelming 25 goals I think I've ever seen. Yeah, they're not highlight reel goals at all, but they count just the same as the ones you see on those loops on the sports networks, endless loops that go on and on and on. I guess that's what an endless loop does. But yeah, Jake DeBrusk's not the biggest guy in the world.
No.
And so there is a willingness there to get to the dirty areas, as they say. And so, again, I have very... outside of, I think there was an 11-game stretch, the first 9 games of the season. You don't want those stretches, like a little more consistency, I guess. But at the end of the year, you add them all up, and he's going to lead this team in goals. And so there are other areas to point at and pick at when it comes to the 2024-25 Vancouver Canucks season.
Another point on it. Yeah, that's his 14th power play goal of the season, which gives him one more than Alex Ovechkin. So, I mean, Ovi obviously having an incredible season, incredible career, and that's, I guess, the difference between one of the all-time greats is that he's been able to score as much as he has at 5-on-5, and DeBrusk has not. Although, that's still, 13 goals at 5-on-5? Like, that's, I mean, not amazing, but that's not terrible. That's not nothing.
No, and look, he was brought in, and the whole idea was to get a winger for Elias Pettersson. Well, we know how his season has ended, as we found out this morning, that he's done for the year. If he can get back to anywhere close to his previous form, then you would think that a guy like DeBrusk would benefit. So let's see what next year looks like for Jake DeBrusk and the Vancouver Canucks. This segment of Rink Wide brought to you by your Pacific Toyota dealers, and they want to tell you about the Toyota BZ4X, 100% electric and backed by the peace of mind, knowing that it's a Toyota, and the spark of joy you get when you pass a gas station, knowing that you don't have to stop. And we always talk about the cargo capacity, and it's got plenty, whether it's hockey gear in hockey season, or now as we turn our attention to golf season, you can get the golf clubs in there, the kids, the dogs, it's got room for everybody. And it can handle any terrain as well. So it can take you from the city to the slopes. If you're going mountain biking, put the rack on the back and take the bikes up into the hills as well. You can do it all when you choose the BZ4X, and you can get up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives. And right now you can finance a 2025 BZ4X from 0.99% APR for 36 months. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right. We talked about the fact that Kevin Lankinen was probably the best Canuck on the ice tonight. And, when you only get 14 shots on goal, not a whole lot from the forward group. And I mean, Marcus Pettersson scored one of the goals, so one of them comes from a defenseman, the other on a power play. Not much doing 5-on-5 for the forwards, and a forward group that included 22-year-old Ty Mueller making his NHL debut. This is a guy that has turned heads in his first year as a pro, has 12 goals and I think it's 38 points down in Abbotsford. Was recognized tonight as Abbotsford's unsung hero. So while he was playing in the NHL, he was collecting hardware down in the minors. And look, they put him in a position to succeed. We just spent a bunch of time talking about Jake DeBrusk. He was on a line with DeBrusk and Besser on the other side. So the two top goal scorers in the Vancouver Canucks. And in comes this kid who's earned the opportunity. And give him credit for that. Didn't play a ton, but that's not a surprise with a young guy getting his feet wet at the NHL level. 10 minutes and 56 seconds of ice time. Did have a shot on goal. Won 3 of 7 faceoffs. Blocked a couple of shots. Took a penalty in the third period. And I thought, it was a 2-1 game at that point. Unfortunate timing for him, but picked up by a penalty kill. It's been terrific all season long for the Vancouver Canucks. So the penalty wasn't costly in that regard, but what did you see, if anything, from Ty Mueller in his NHL debut?
I mean, I saw a young guy getting a chance. Had the first shot on goal.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I found myself looking down, thinking about he had that first face off, and I think I first face off Freddie Gaudreau, and the sort of the mentality that goes through that. I for a brief moment, just aside, I thought of Troy Stecher and his story from when he made his NHL debut. He looked up and Ovi was across from him. But no, listen, he played with a couple of really quality wingers. He's now seen the game. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to come in and be a revelation, but he's had a quality first pro season. 38 points in 62 games for Abbotsford is not anything to sniff at for a guy that's only 22. I mean, obviously there's, not a ton of development left after 3 years in college, but that's a good step up playing a regular shift in the AHL. And yeah, I mean, he can skate. Rick Tocchet talked about how he liked sort of his feistiness and sort of ability to kind of keep up with the play and whatever. And yeah, I mean, these games happen. These guys get in for a game like that. Nothing stood out to me as especially terrible, but I mean, the penalty looked like, okay, there's a guy that finds himself chasing the game a little bit, and it is now he's seen what the NHL is like, and I guess we'll see if he gets a round 2 to know that you've got to play a little bit quicker.
Yeah, he played because Max Sasson was unavailable. Yeah. Talking just said he was banged up, and I probably should have folled it up with 2 games to go.
It's
I don't
a regular
know
injury these days.
Yeah, so I don't know, but I mean, we're running out of runway here, so Ty Mueller may hang around and get another opportunity. We'll see all of his ice time, by the way, at 5-on-5. It was interesting. He practiced at the morning skate as part of the second power play unit, so I thought maybe he'd get an opportunity. Of course, the Canucks scored on their second of the 2 power plays, so they didn't have a lot of power play time in the hockey game. Whatever the case, nobody can take it away from him. He has played in the National Hockey League in his first year of professional hockey, a year that's included a trip to the American Hockey League All-Star Weekend down in Palm Springs when DPD was unavailable because he stayed in the National Hockey League. So, he was a fill-in then, but still a great opportunity for Ty Mueller to get down there and get recognized in the American Hockey League, and now earn the call-up here late in the season as the shuttle continues with the number of different players this year that have been called up and played for both Abbotsford and the Vancouver Canucks. All right, this is your opportunity, though, because Ty Mueller plays because Max Sasson isn't available, and Max Sasson's playing because Nils Oman's not available, and I think you know where I'm going here.
Well, yeah.
The 4 centers tonight for the Vancouver Canucks: Pius Suter, Teddy Bluger, Ratu, and the aforementioned Ty Mueller. Outside of the one chance, I thought this was a quiet night for Ratu, who's been on a nice run on this call-up. I mean, they're not all going to be standout games, and he had his moment there. But yes, like Rick Tocchet confirmed this morning after the morning skate, Elias Pettersson and Philip Hedl done for the year. We're not going to see them. You asked a question. I think it was a secondhand question because a friend of yours, I believe.
My pal Tom Chipman texted me and
said, posed the question.
Is this the weakest group of centers the Canucks have ever iced in an NHL playoff game? Now, I didn't go too far back, but you and I talked it out. I mean, you basically look back the last 2 decades. I mean, obviously, in the last couple seasons, there's been quite a lot of good centers here and very few games where they haven't all been playing. We're talking about Mueller, Pettersson, and Horvat.
I remember
First
a few of those
remember
guys.
they had all three of them at one point. But you go back to before that, Henrik Sedin. I mean, I suppose when Petey had his concussion at the beginning of 1819 or 1819, right? Yeah. Like, there wasn't a ton of depth. I mean, Adam Gaudette got his call up because I remember Jay Beagle broke his arm, but outside, but you still had Bo, right? Yeah. So you had Bo, which was clearly, I mean,
the staples.
All love to Pia Suter, but
right. But since the turn of the millennium, like we're not going back to Canucks expansion years, but from there's a through line from Trevor Linden to Henrik Sedin to Ryan Kessler to Bo Horvat. Brendan Morrison's in there.
Way back, you have Castles and a guy and wearing number 11.
As you said, Horvat, Mueller, and Petey. So, like Henrik missed a few games, but not many. But you'd really have to go and dig deep to see if there was a night that both Henrik and Ryan Kessler were out of the lineup. Whatever the case, I think Tom might be onto something here.
Yeah, I think he is. I really think he is. Because, I mean, I said, let's find out what Luby Weiss's 4 games in 99, 2000. And even in those games, Mark Messier and Andrew Castles were playing. So, yeah, I think Tom's onto something. This is an incredibly unusual circumstance where the Canucks have landed at the end of the season here. I mean, there are lineups. You can go back and look. I mean, I was doing this the other day. I was trying to remember. I looked at Aidan McDonough's first goal. And all 5 guys on the ice are no longer anywhere to be seen near the Vancouver Canucks.
Wow.
And Jack Rathbone was on the ice. You can go back and watch Jack Rathbone's first goal in 2021, and none of the 5 players on the ice for the Canucks are anywhere to be seen near the Vancouver Canucks. There have been some very poor late season lineups, but in general, the center ice position has always seen a reasonable amount of quality even late in the season. So what the Canucks are facing right now is probably unprecedented as far as I can tell.
Well, they've got depth on defense, and it starts with Quinn Hughes. We're going to hear from the captain in a sec. But before we do that, I want to get to the stat that stands out, because we pick a stat from every game. We'll get to the stat that stands out momentarily. But I throw this one out there in a year that has kind of gone off the rails, for the Vancouver Canucks. The overtime result tonight, the fact that they lost, don't worry about that. The fact that they got to overtime means that this club, with all of its flaws and all of its infighting and all of its injuries and inconsistencies, will not lose 3 straight games in regulation at all this year.
Amazing.
It is.
That's amazing. Consistently inconsistent.
Completely. But like they had a 4-game win streak. Yeah. I think people forget way back in the first couple of weeks of the season. They did string 4 together. But they've lost 2 in regulation and then found a way to win and then lose 2 more. Like I think the 5 games out of the 4 Nations break where they lost in Vegas and Utah and then won in overtime in Los Angeles and then lost in Anaheim and Seattle. So they, won 1 of their first 5 games out of the break. And that was, as St. Louis was starting to heat up, that was a really pivotal stretch. But there wasn't a 3-game in regulation losing streak in there. And now, with only 2 games to go, they will not lose 3 games in regulation all season long. So that's a stat that stands out to me, but it's not our stat that stands out tonight. We talked about this along press row as well. The stat that stands out is a presentation of Resurrection Spirits. Drew O'Connor appeared in his 82nd game of the season. 82nd? Well, the season's over, of course, right? No. He was picked up from Pittsburgh. Penguins have played a few more games than the Canucks. Drew O'Connor can have an 84-game season, and we did the research.
Yeah.
And you got to go back. I mean, there was a time the NHL played 84 games. In a season, Trevor Linden played 84 games for the Vancouver Canucks. Jyrki Lumme played 83 games one season. So these aren't all going to be with the Vancouver Canucks, but games 83 and 84 will come in a Canuck uniform. So a statistical oddity, we like that one. Stat that stands out definitely is the fact that Drew O'Connor, can he ask for like overtime pay for the last couple of...
Do you remember? Don't forget the Cody Hodgson element to this.
Right. We found out that Cody Hodgson also played 83 games
in 11,
a season 12. Where he was traded. So he didn't play his 83rd game as a Canuck, but he did log 83 games. It happens around the National Hockey League.
These are how we entertain ourselves.
Exactly. This is what it's been reduced to. So hopefully you enjoy the stat that stands out as much as we do. And we always like telling you about Bogey Juice, which is crafted with a tantalizing blend of crisp apple flavoring and kickin' ginger for that refreshing zing. Every shot of Bogey Juice is like a hole-in-one for your taste buds, sweetened to perfection with simple syrup and made even smoother with top-shelf vodka. It's the only juice that's guaranteed to make your golf buddies beam with envy despite the score it refers to. Check out bogeyjuice.com for more info and use promo code SP15 for 15% off Bogey Juice product and merch. And you can see the product over my left shoulder here. We've got some of it in studio. Hopefully Corey Connors won't be taking any swigs of Bogey Juice on Masters Sunday. He's got his work cut out for him, trying to reel in Rory McIlroy and Bryson DeChambeau in the mix there as well. But great showing so far for the Canadian Corey Connors with a legitimate chance to slip on a green jacket on Sunday.
Can I just quickly say something to Scott English in the chat, who points out Jimmy Carson and his 86 games? That did come up. And I actually was hoping that it happened with the Canucks, but it didn't.
No.
Because Jimmy Carson, of course, had a brief cup of coffee with the Vancouver Canucks.
And Nara enjoying our mention of Cody Hodgson. He says, Game 8 champion, Cody Hodgson. Bar down. Never going to forget that one.
Oh, those were the days.
Absolutely. I mentioned the fact that Ty Mueller picked up the Unsung Hero Award out in Abbotsford. We should commend Linus Karlsson, who's trying his best to make a claim for a roster spot with the big league team for next season. Picked up the assist, primary assist on the Pettersson goal. Linus Karlsson was named MVP for the Abbotsford Canucks earlier tonight.
And a guy who's picked it up. I remember, I think I don't know who I said it to, but I remember sitting there watching him in his early season call up, and he was behind the play, and he just was slow, and just seemed like he just wasn't reading anything. But since he's come back, you can tell this is a player who understood, that he needed to find something else to stay, and he's been a good player. He's a fourth liner, right? But he's shown enough. There's some physical element, some physical edge to his game. He's showing off his hands here and there. He made a couple nice passes, especially early in the game when they were in control of the game and Minnesota looked lifeless. I credit to that guy who certainly came over. I mean, unheralded pick, a guy that was identified by the analytics team, if I understand it, Jonathan Wall and the analytics team in 2019, traded, kind of a reclamation project when they said move him, Jonathan Dahlin. But turned himself into an NHLer, and looks like he's probably going to play a role next season. He's on a one-way contract now. Credit to him for figuring it out, especially even within the confines of one season.
If you're joining us late, Canucks with a 2-0 lead to start the third period, but it got away from them. They lose 3-2 in overtime. Rick Tocchet addressing the media at Rogers Arena following the loss. Here is the coach of the Vancouver Canucks.
Rick, we'll just start with your assessment of the third period and what happened to allow them to come back into the game.
I think we're up 2-0. We stopped making plays. Guys are getting antsy. It's been a kind of common theme sometimes with our team. We just need to relax. A lot of young guys on the lineup. We got some average guys, so that's understandable. But there's some plays there where you just got to kind of calm down. I thought we were just kind of chipping pucks away when there was nobody around us. So those are the things that you got to really work on, how to deal under pressure. But good effort.
We just talked to Marcus Pettersson. He called the punch on Forbert one of the worst things he's seen. Your reaction to it, and do you have an update on Derek?
I agree with him. No, I don't. I don't have an update on him yet.
Overtime's been a theme all year. Again today, did you see some of the same things that have plagued you earlier in the year?
Well, what did you see? Hoggy missed his man. Poor guy. I mean, he's not out there. Usually he's not out on those things, and he missed his man. That's it. It's not a microcosm of the, it's just overtime's an individual mistake. So that's what happens. And, he's played good hockey, and he missed his man. Move on.
What about they had a lot to play for, right? I mean, the other teams you played knew their positioning in the standings. You'll get that again with Vegas later. This team had a lot to play for. Was that a factor, with you guys being out?
No, there's a factor that we have, we got another guy coming up from Abbotsford, sticking him in the lineup, and we're trying to get him to get a taste what it's like. We have certain guys in and out of the lineup. I think the guys have done a hell of a job. I cannot be mad at our team at all. So this is not a time to evaluate why we lost this game. I thought, I will tell you, we have to learn how to play under pressure. And that's just, I don't care who it is, we have to continue to work on that. We will continue to work on that.
Rick, I wanted to pick up on something that you just said about overtimes and individual mistake. Do you mean that tonight it was an individual mistake, or in general when you lose an overtime
this year
game?
there's been a lot of, I don't know what the word is. A little careless mistakes is cost us overtime. If you go back in all the overtime, there's some carelessness that we have to clean up. Tonight's just Hoggy's not usually out there, and he just lost his man. It's man on man. He should have stays with the man. But that's he'll learn. He's a young kid, and he'll just learn from it. It's not his fault. We'll continue to work with these guys.
How much of that, not Hoggy's mistake, but
Yeah.
how much of that making those mistakes in those key moments is related to what you're saying about playing under pressure?
Oh, there's definitely something to that. You've been out there for 35 seconds. You're in a vulnerable situation. You don't want to try to make a high risk play. You live for another shift. You give it to somebody else. You get off, get somebody on. I think what we're doing is, we're trying to make something that's not there. And then what happens, you got good. Usually the best players in overtime, right? Both teams. So when you make a crucial mistake, you give a team a 2-on-1 or a breakaway, they're usually going to score. So I think it's just the understanding of when you're vulnerable, when to go for it, when not to. And it's on me. So I got to start teaching it better, and maybe we got to practice it even more. A lot of you usually don't practice it, a lot of it, but might have to look into that obviously a lot more this for next year.
All right, here you go. A lot of overtime talk. He laid it clear that it was Hoaglander's man, but I thought coached it in enough way that he wasn't throwing darts at Nils Hoaglander. Said a young guy doesn't get in overtime very often. He'll learn from it, but it's definitely it was his guy that got away from him. Zuccarello scores to win it at 2:47 of OT.
But he talked, just on Hoaglander, I think he talked about recently just about how he realized that, you just got to focus in on a couple things with him to work on and just sort of focus on that. And, he doesn't play a lot in overtime. And I think that's partly the reason, because they don't want him to be a wheel-in dealer. They want him to be a direct guy who gets in on the puck, because he's such a good forechecker, right? He's a guy that turns pucks over and has good hands around the net. That the way you need to play, I think, in the modern overtime probably doesn't fit maybe necessarily, at least instinctually, the way he plays, but there he is by circumstance. So it was a tough, he doesn't blame them, but I just want to shout out great questions from Gemma. I think dialing in on what does this all mean? What do you can you tell us more about that? After he maybe bit our head off a little bit, but it was interesting. It was an interesting conversation to me, because you and I come into these games, we're kind of like, okay, what's there? Well, the whole story's Minnesota. There's not a lot for the Canucks, but hey, we found something to learn a bit about, think a bit about, and this team certainly this season, as we've already mentioned, overtime was not a strength, and it does surprise me. Rick mentioned it there, but it does surprise me they don't practice 3-on-3 more. Right. It is a scenario, especially when they won 26 times this year. You don't, I think, expect to play that many times, but it is such a crucial sequence. It surprises me now that I think about it, that they haven't actually spent more time figuring a few things out. It is individual play. It is a lot of 1-on-1. And they do sort of 3-on or 2-on-1 drills. They do a lot of kind of small sided stuff, but they don't necessarily do the full ice 3-on-3. How are we going to orient ourselves? How are we going to make this work kind of thing? From as an outside perspective, I would encourage Rick Tocchet to do more of that next year.
Well, yeah. If more than a quarter of your games are going to go to overtime, we talked about the value of all those points, and they've left 14 of them on the table, and they're going to wind up 5 or 6 points short of being in the playoffs. The other night they were able to limit Quinn Hughes' ice time because they had the lead. They extended it in Colorado. Quinn plays 27:02 in this because, again, a 2-1 hockey game for much of the third period. Not an unreasonable amount. The unreasonable was on the other side. We went through the ice times. But the high ice time guy tonight, and maybe not a surprise here, Filip Hronek with a season high, 28 minutes and 29 seconds. His previous season high was 28:07 in Calgary on March the 12th. So Phil Hronek goes for 28 and a half minutes. So a busy night for him. But the underlines, Patrick, were not pretty. Well, we talked about the fact that the Wild had quite a considerable edge. The scoring chances were 31-13 at 5-on-5. The high dangers at 12-5. Under the hood, the raw shot attempts with Filip Hronek on the ice tonight, 36-6 in favor of the Minnesota Wild. and his partner, Marcus Pettersson, basically the same. The low Corsi guy, maybe not a surprise here, the rookie dipping his toe into NHL water. The shot attempts were 23-5 with Ty Mueller on the ice in favor of the Minnesota Wild. So, yeah, it was a lot of time defending in this hockey game for the Vancouver Canucks.
Especially the third period, which again, I mean, we knew they're driving the bus. We knew that they're going to sit back and try to sort of defend the middle, but the way that Minnesota really kind of torqued them open time and again was, I'm sure, not pleasing for the coach to see, but he in the end, of course, is realistic about where his team is at this point in the season. And he is going to try to find lessons to instill in his players and say, listen, let's not do that next year.
I see some people in the chat asking about Tom Willander. We'll get to that topic here in a sec, tell you what's still to come with 2 games to go for the Vancouver Canucks. But let's get to our line of the night, brought to you by Bet365. Breaking news coming in from Bet365, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner. Every faceoff, every hat trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, never ordinary at Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. Download Bet365 app and use the code NATION to get in on the game. Must be 19 years or older. Please play responsibly. And looking at the Sunday night schedule of the National Hockey League, you got the Calgary Flames at home to the San Jose Sharks. Sharks will be coming in here on the back half of back-to-backs. This is now must-win time for the Calgary Flames, who beat the Minnesota Wild to stay alive. And so you got Calgary against the last-place Sharks, but you saw the Sharks playing loose and fast, and Macklin Celebrini with the hat-trick and 5 points the other night.
That game was fun, Jeff.
If you don't, look, and I'm sure there are many in Canucks Nation that don't want the Flames to squeeze into the playoffs, so there's value to be had on the San Jose Sharks. And we'll see if the Flames are a little tight. You can get the Flames on the money line at 2+225 for that game that goes on Sunday night. That is our line of the night. Then, of course, the Sharks come in here on Monday, and that'll be game 81 for the Vancouver Canucks. This is a San Jose team that, I mean, you know the story by now, very much in the rebuilding phase. Macklin Celebrini, though, 24 goals and 62 points. As an 18-year-old, a raw rookie in the National Hockey League, I think has exceeded expectations. And how about Will Smith? Just turned 20 years of age. He's got 45 points. So, you know, these are the cornerstones for the San Jose Sharks. They've got some pieces in place, but they've got 20 wins and 51 points. They're last in the league. They're 31st in offense and 32nd in defense. That is a caustic combination. And when you're that bad in both of those categories, it's not a surprise that you're dead last in the overall standing. So, you know, another really high, if not first overall pick coming San Jose's way as well when the lottery balls bounce here in a couple of weeks' time. But it does seem like Mike Grier is, going about his business and methodically putting the rebuild. I mean, this has been a true rebuild in San Jose, but there are some very, very bright pieces that are going to be a huge part of the future there in the Bay Area.
Well, the fact they've gotten good seasons, not just from Celebrini, but William Eklund, Will Smith, a couple of young guys there who, losing can be tough. And we're certainly seeing how that's playing out with Connor Bedard. But these guys having found their way despite it all, I think having fun. Like I said, that game on Wednesday against Minnesota was absolutely wild. And for them to come back, right? And actually, make a game of it and not just come back, but push it to overtime. Shows you that there is some spunk there. There's some guys that recognize they're at least going to have a good time. And then certainly Mike Grier, I think, has set the tone in the way that you want, which is that he's recognized the situation. You can just see this kind of spirit of the team and the way he approaches things. Shout out to Mike Grier, by the way. He held the door open for me as I was scrambling to one of my last game that I covered in San Jose 2.5 seasons ago, and pointed me, which I couldn't remember how to get the press box.
I thought you were going to say tonight, and I was like,
no,
Calgary tomorrow. What are you talking about?
No.
All right.
But just, so there's me showing favoritism towards this person that held the door open for me. But no, you're right. It's been there are interesting young stuff there. Obviously, still a lot of work to do and a lot of guys to bring, a lot of sort of depth to add there, but not in a terrible position given everything, given they've got young guys and they've got some cap space and they've got a guy like Tyler Toffoli already in the fold.
Yeah, and I didn't really know Toffoli had to know what he was getting himself into, and he's been highly productive in a tough environment down there in San Jose as well. So, a true pro through and through. Lots going on at all sorts of levels. The point streak came to an end last night, or the win streak came to an end last night in Abbotsford. The point streak is now over as well. The Calgary Wranglers damn you, Calgary Wranglers. They hang a 3-1 loss on the Abbotsford Canucks in the final home game out in Abbey. In the regular season, there will be playoff hockey out there, but fan appreciation night, awards night, 3-1. The Wranglers defeat the Abbotsford Canucks. In another game on the out-of-town scoreboard, Western Michigan, the national champs of the NCAA this season, beat Tom Willander and Aiden Celebrini's Boston University Terriers. 6-2 was the final in St. Louis, and so the college hockey season is over. Are you on Tom Willander watch at this moment, Patrick?
No.
Okay.
I'm not.
I was trying to build it up.
I mean, listen, we all talk to people that know people. I know. I don't know what's going to happen there. I was actually sitting there thinking about that earlier. I was like, what is going to happen? There's 2 games left, and we have seen these kinds of signings. He's obviously a very high profile guy. I mean, we've seen Besser come in. We've seen Hughes come in late in the year. We've also seen Josh Tevez and Brogan Rafferty come in late in the year. You never know.
Yeah.
And
Griffin Molino, Mike Zaleski, on and on it goes.
But listen, I mean, the thing that intrigues me about it, especially for looking at Forbert, do you just sign Willander and throw him in there?
Tyler Myers skated this morning, and Rick Tocchet's words were they were going to continue to monitor him.
Yeah, I was wondering what that meant.
I wonder if that means another day off on Monday and plays the finale just to get one more game in.
Yeah.
Again, if you missed it, Elias Pettersson done for the season with 2 to go, and Philip Hedl, not a huge surprise, but he's not going to play again this year either. So it really is kind of what you see is what you get.
I mean, Myers skating tells you. I mean, it is no surprise to you and I that Tyler Myers would want to get back in the lineup, right?
Yep.
And so the statement of him skating tells you how much he wants to play.
But if they sit him one more night, it allows Mancini and DPD to continue to play. And now we'll see where things go with Tom Willander. I know Rick Dollywell's reported that he expects negotiations to heat up here in the next 24 hours. Problem is the time, Boston College is in St. Louis.
Boston University,
yes.
Very different places, Josh.
I understand. My bad. But game on Monday against San Jose, and then the final game, if he is going to burn off a year of that entry-level deal, there's 2 games to go. So, it's there. It could be done. Ultimately, we'll see how things play out. So even if Patrick's not on a Tom Willander watch,
I'll go with what I know, which was that, when he first got drafted, I did ask his advisor, Tom Diamond, what do you think? And he goes, well, we'll see. He's going to go to school for a year or 2. And you're like, okay. And so, here we are 2 years into it. And it's not a huge surprise that he's now interested. But I think a lot of it was colored by the fact that I'm sure the Canucks didn't want to bug him because he was trying to win a national championship. But certainly the player knows the team is interested. And you come in. I mean, the thing that actually fascinated me, what if they had still been in a playoff chase, right? Like, how does that play out?
Right.
Like the incentives for the Canucks are very different now. In that case, I don't know if they wouldn't necessarily want to put him in the lineup. Would they want to if you put him in the lineup now, you're burning an ELC year. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Would you want to send him to Abbotsford, give him an opportunity to play in the AHL playoffs there?
And we're led to believe that would be the choice of the organization, but the leverage is on Willander and his camp side. He could always go back to school for another year if he doesn't like the way things are playing out. But I mean, we're led to believe that he wants to turn pro, and it's just a question of how's it going to shake down, bonus schedule, and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. I mean, certainly something to follow here in the days ahead. But if he is going to burn that first year, it means he plays one of these final 2 games. He's in St. Louis right now, or on a flight back to Boston with his team, and we'll see how it all shakes down. All right. Canucks season is winding down. There are 2 to go, San Jose on Monday, and then Vegas is back for Game 82 on Wednesday. As the hockey season comes to an end for the Vancouver Canucks, Vancouver Canadians baseball season, new season of Seas baseball is underway. They've been out on the road here. The home opener is coming up on Tuesday, April 15th. So just around the corner. And what better way to open the season than with fireworks? And so, yes, they will have fireworks night on opening night. And then the Seas are at home all next week. It includes a Friday nooner at the net. And you can get your weekend started early with the first pitch at 1:05. The week will end with a White Spot Family Fun Sunday afternoon game. And the kids can run the bases when the final out has been recorded. For tickets, check out CanadiansBaseball.com. All right, we started with a wonky microphone, but we've persevered. That seems like ages ago now. We have covered a lot of ground, some good and some not so good for the Vancouver Canucks in the 80th game of the season. So 80 down and 2 to go, and we'll see what those hold. So they are going to practice on Sunday. I mean, I'm not sure the benefit of practice at this late stage, but Rick Tocchet has talked about trying to keep his guys focused.
Yep.
And, look, we should mention, we're almost at the end here, but we ought to have mentioned earlier the effort of Connor Garland on that one penalty killing shift where he dove twice to make incredible plays. And in those moments, you ask, like, all right, like these games aren't really supposed to mean anything. And yet you see a guy like Connor Garland who his motor has run since day one of training camp and he hasn't let up. But I thought, good on him. Like if you are trying to, culture carrier and set the tone for all these young guys that are up from Abbotsford. And, here's a guy that just lays it on the line every shift he gets. So I wasn't surprised at it, but, the first one was pretty cool. And then to see the second one on the same play, like the hustle was there, as it always is with Connor Garland. So I just wanted to take a moment to salute him, at least for that.
A statement about, why their penalty kill's been so good. I mean, there was a nice angling off of the point by Pia Suter after Garland laid out the first time, and it was set the whole. I mean, to me, I think I turned to you guys and I said that sums up why those two have killed penalties so well. You got the heart and determination of one guy, and just an incredibly smart sort of way to approach the attacker by Suter. I mean, it was fantastic. It was really fun to watch, and it is why fans roar for Connor Garland as they did when he was announced in the starting lineup. Well,
we'll see what the Sunday practice brings. I can't imagine that Derek Forbert will be
3-on-3 overtime.
Yeah, seriously, in just a 45-minute overtime session, essentially. Looking for candidates who wants to step up and get a chance, but we'll hope that Derek Forbert's okay and is able to join the Canucks. Will get a better sense of Tyler Myers and, again, maybe have some indication of the organization's plans for Tom Willander by the time they hit the ice on Sunday. So we'll be there and we'll cover it certainly in social and on Canucks Army as well. I know you guys will be all over it at Post Media too.
Coos will be there.
Coos will be there, and we look forward to that. All right. Again, I usually wrap up Rink Wide by saying, if you don't already follow us on our social channels, if you're watching on the live stream, they're all there for you. So take your pick and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. As we work our way into the off season, we're going to be producing all sorts of non-game related content. We're not just a pretty post-game show. We'll continue the hockey talk through the summer months as well. So if you don't want to miss any of the fresh content that we generate here on Rink Wide, make sure that you subscribe and rate and review. Leave us know what you have appreciated, what you'd like to see maybe tinkered with and changed for. We're already in the pre-planning stages for next season. How about that? So, all right, PJ.
Great.
Thank
to be
you.
Here.
Yes.
Glad to be here. Glad it worked out.
Yes, he started the night at the rink, jacket and tie, but we dumbed it down a little here for Rink Wide. There's no tie policy, or at least you'd have to go like full Berkey, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, all right, Atu Nicola behind the scenes at the controls tonight, and we appreciate his help getting us up and running here. And it's always good to get Patrick in for the final time this year.
I think so,
because Irf is back for the last two. So,
bless Irf.
Yeah, but we'll catch up with you on other shows here under the umbrella, and we'll see you at the rink as well.
Absolutely.
So.
Great.
All right. Thanks to everybody for spending a little bit of your Saturday with us. That is going to do it. The final score, Minnesota 3, the Vancouver Canucks 2 in overtime. You have been listening and watching Rink Wide Vancouver.